theyeshiva.net.
I'm going to take some questions. Yeah, good question. Why by revenge does the Rambam give an example of a hatchet, and by grudges, in Halacha Ches, the Rambam gives an example of renting a home or borrowing an ox? Excellent question. So I saw one of the commentators of the Rambam, the Shari Deya, explains that a hatchet is pretty common, or an axe or a hammer, these types of things. A house and an ox are not so common to borrow or to rent. So the Rambam is telling us, if somebody doesn't give me a hatchet, okay, I can go to the store and get another one. I could borrow it from somebody else. But if somebody doesn't rent me a house, or somebody doesn't give me an ox to plow my field, this is already a very serious loss, because I can't just go get another house. It may be much more difficult. So here you would think you're justified to harbor resentment and grudges in your heart, because, okay, he didn't give me a hammer, right? But an ox or a house, so that's the Chiddush of the Rambam, that even here there should not be any harboring of revenge. Another question you're asking is, in Halacha Zayin he said, Hanoikim es chavere. In Halacha Ches he says, Hanoitu le'echad miYisrael. What's the difference? That's an excellent question. By Noikim, he says it's only by a friend. By Noikim, it's only by a friend. So I saw, they bring from the Maharshal. The Maharshal in his beer on the Smag, Lavin Yud Aleph, Reb Shlomo Luria from Lublin, from Poland, the great Maharshal, 16th century Poland. So the Maharshal says as follows: revenge only applies to chaver. The Rambam says, Hanoikim es chaver. You take revenge from your chaver. Why? Because it's clear that if not for the desire for revenge, he would have lent him the object. But a stranger, you're not sure that he's not giving you the hatchet because he's taking revenge. It's possible that he doesn't want to lend his items. Maybe he's scared that you're not going to use it well, you're not going to take care of it. Maybe he's very controlling, maybe he's very sensitive, maybe he's a little stingy. It's not necessary because it's revenge. So he says that's why it's noikim es chavere. In other words, it's an issue of revenge. That's why he uses it with chavere. He's a friend of yours, so you should give it to him, right? The reason you're not giving it to him is because nekama. But by netira, harboring a grudge, it's about something in the heart. So there's no distinction. In other words, if you harbor a grudge to any Jew, you're over an Isser because you're harboring a grudge. By nekama, usually I would say, it's not nekama. He just doesn't want to give it to him. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. By it's chavere, it's nekama. But when it comes to harboring a grudge, it's just about what's in your heart. Nobody knows about it. So here, in any case where you're harboring a grudge, it applies. This is what I saw from the Maharshal. He says that even a stranger, even if he says, I'm not giving it to you because I'm taking revenge, even then it may just be he's giving an excuse. You didn't give it to me, I'm not giving it to you. But really his reason is something else. That's what the Maharshal says. You're asking a question. Was the first guy wrong, or the first guy also did a sin? That's an interesting question, and I think that's the point. The first guy didn't lend it to you. Why? I don't know. Maybe he's selfish. Maybe he's cheap. Maybe he knows that you're a shlamazla and you're going to break it. Maybe he's having a stress day. Maybe the last person he gave something, he never got it back. Yeah. Maybe he's afraid that he's going to need it. Maybe he's a control freak. Maybe he's in a bad mood. Or maybe he just doesn't like to share things. Okay, it's not a sin. He may have to work on himself, maybe yeah, maybe not. It's really none of my business, but it's not a sin. He didn't do the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, he didn't do the mitzvah of Chesed, okay. But he not necessarily sinned, not necessarily. But I'm not even sure. The point is, I shouldn't get involved in his business. That's the point. In other words, you didn't lend me the hatchet. Your reasons are your reasons. Why am I taking revenge? That's already not good. But he didn't lend me. Okay, he didn't lend you. So that's between him and him and him and God. He didn't lend you. The moment I start taking revenge, now something bad is happening. This is already an Avera. You get it? He didn't lend it. But now I'm taking the revenge. Now it becomes my story. Why is it my story? Somebody asks you for a hatchet, give it to him. If you can't give it to him, you can't give it to him. If you're afraid he's going to ruin it, okay, then it's not revenge. That's why it's chavera. Because by chavera, usually you would have given it. Right? But if I'm doing it for revenge, then that's a problem. And the same is true with harboring grudges. The guy didn't give it to me. He didn't give it to me. Was he right? Maybe. Was he wrong? Maybe. Was he 100% wrong? Maybe. Was he 50% wrong? Maybe. Why are you harboring a grudge? Now you're already, what do they say? Don't allow somebody who did something that you feel is bad to you live in your brain constantly rent-free. What's happening now is he didn't give it. That's the end of the story. The revenge or harboring the grudge continues the story forever. Don't let the story continue forever. Let it stop. Interrupt the story. He did what he did. He did not lend it to you. Okay. Why? But now it's eating up on me. I'm busy harboring. This is already unhealthy. This is already dysfunctional. This is already immoral. Next question. Are you allowed to report a pedophile? What about a COVID-infected person ignoring quarantine orders, going among the vulnerable and making them sick? That has nothing to do with Loshon Hara. No. You're trying to save innocent people. You're trying to save innocent people. Of course, we're allowed to bring people to justice. Witnesses come to court and they testify. How are they allowed to testify? It's Loshon Hara. They're trying to help the world, and they're trying even to help that person. So it's a whole different situation. What you explained about Kaifer Be'ikr, you could say, is all Averes ben Adam lachavere. No, I think there's something more about Loshon Hara, because what is Loshon Hara? Loshon Hara is one teichen. I'm bringing out the bad of the person. That's what I'm doing. It's not like even taking revenge. Taking revenge is my own issue. I got angry. I'm harboring a grudge. Loshon Hara is one thing. I'm not even talking about what he did to me. Could be also that. I'm talking about the evil of the person. There's a beautiful explanation in the Shem Shmuel, and it's based on a Maharal also, and that is that the place where we reflect Hashem most is through our speech. That's why we're called medaber. Vahi ha'adam lenefesh chaya, the Targum says, leruach mamalala. Dibur defines the uniqueness of a person, our ability to communicate. And in many ways, we say Hashem created the world through words. So the fact that we can speak is the place where we imitate Hashem more than anything else. We reflect Hashem. We also create through words. Amar Malka Akartura. When I use my words to defame a person, says the Maharal, at that moment, it seems like that I don't have a boire. Usually a human being, a nivra is supposed to reflect the boire. The tsura is supposed to reflect the yotzer. Remember we spoke about tsura in Hilchos Torah. L'damei satsura liyotzra. In Loshon Hara, what am I doing? I'm completely detaching myself. I'm disaligning myself from my source. Because if I was a reflection of my source, how can I use my words to defame a person that was created by Hashem? My words are here to build the world, to build people, to bring goodness to people. So the fact that I use my words to defame a person, in a way, is the most powerful way of disaligning myself with my source. Because my koyach hadibur, that's where I reflect Hashem most. I'm a medaber. Like Hashem speaks the world and I speak. When I use that power of speech and that energy of dibur to denigrate a person, I detach from my source. And when you look at me, you don't see Hashem anymore. You see the opposite. So I become a kaifer beker. In my presence, I'm denying Hashem, because my presence does not anymore testify or allude to the fact that I am created by Hashem. What are the exceptions of Loshon Hara? When are you allowed to speak Loshon Hara? So the Chafetz Chaim wrote a very famous chibur, Shmiras HaLashon on Loshon Hara. You can look at it. It's also in English, and there he discusses all of the exceptions in detail. Generally, it's still quite clear. Okay, if I'm trying to save somebody's life, if there's a disaster going on, if I need advice, if I'm testifying in court, if it's actually benefiting the situation or the person, then very often it doesn't come into the category of Loshon Hara. Generally, the description of Loshon Hara is, I am here and there's one purpose, and the purpose is I'm telling you a juicy story that brings out something negative about the person I'm talking about. And the Rambam says, when I'm aware of the divine, I do not go into that space, because there's an element of Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, and Trichas Damim in it. What happens if you tell Loshon Hara to somebody, you're trying to help the person who may be a victim, but you don't even know the whole story? And you may be convoluting the story, maybe exaggerating the story. Yeah, then it can all be Loshon Hara. You could tell somebody and say, maybe go find out more about this, maybe go speak to this one, maybe go confront this person. You're right, if you don't really know a story, and you don't know the circumstances, then you should not get involved in it and make believe that you know that one person did something terrible and start saying bad things about them. You're 100% right. Humility is always the way to go. It's a whole approach. It's how you live. Loshon Hara is not just a technical thing. I open my mouth or I don't open my mouth. To really master the art of not speaking Loshon Hara, it's changing the trajectory of your life. It's changing the trajectory of your mind. It's how you live. It's who you associate with. It's how you communicate. It's what type of conversations you get involved in. People who own themselves and are responsible for their conversations and know what it means to be a Jew and to be a human being, don't get involved in Loshon Hara. It's not even a daily battle. It's like, I'm not even in that space. I don't go into those spaces that are gossip-oriented. It's really a way of life. It's a way of life. If it just becomes a technical thing, it's very easy to stumble. It's really about how I speak about things, how I speak about people, how I see myself, how I see my role in the world. And I think that's part of what the Rambam is saying. He doesn't isolate Loshon Hara as just a sin. You said something about somebody. No. He puts it in the category of Avodah Zarah. A Jew won't murder, right? A Jew won't commit adultery, right? A Jew won't commit idolatry, right? The Rambam says that's where Loshon Hara belongs. Koifa be'ikir, yeah? You won't deny God's existence. That's where Loshon Hara belongs. When you put it into that category, you understand that it's really a cardinal principle that relates to the totality of your life. Does rechilus mean telling anything that somebody said about somebody else, or it's only things that can trigger animosity? It seems clear that rechilus, he brings from doyeg, so it means something that can trigger animosity. In other words, if I come to somebody and I say something very nice that another person said about him, that's not rechilus. Or even if I just say something neutral, the person said that the oranges that he had in your house on Shabbos were delicious. Or your wife made an unbelievable Shabbos meal, that's not rechilus. On the contrary, that may be very positive. Or even something just neutral. That he said about you, or you work very hard. Fine. But if it's something, that can trigger animosity and resentment, like doyeg, Achimelech gave David bread. Nothing bad about giving somebody bread, especially David. David Melech Yisrael. David is the fourth leg of the Merkava. David was a holy man. David in the Imz Miris Yisrael, V'libi Chala B'kirbi, has no Yetzer Hara, the Yerushalmi says. Right? But telling Shaul HaMelech, who you know despises David HaMelech, and you tell Shaul that Achimelech gave bread, what's going to happen? This is going to trigger contention and discord, even if he didn't know that he's going to kill out a whole city. But that's the Rambam's point. Be careful, because your words are like arrows. Like he says later, they're chitzim. Once you unleash an arrow, you don't know where it's going to hit. Once you unleash the arrow, you don't know. It's not going to discriminate. Be careful with your words. So yes, rechilus is when you say something, it seems from the Rambam, and that's what the Mefarshim say, you say something that can trigger misunderstanding and lead to strife and animosity. The doyeg realized that he's doing something bad. Well, the story is that Shaul told his servants, nobody's protecting me, nobody's here for me. People are against me. So obviously, doyeg had the intention of creating some animosity, of triggering some discord. Yeah, that's what made it rechilus. If you're completely innocent, and you really, really do not know that this is going to do something negative, then it may not be a prohibition. It's a mistake. It's an avera b'shoigig. You didn't mean to do it. A peddler, that's what he says. A peddler is, I'm going to tell it. I collect information here and I come to you. Yeah, I got it. Why am I giving it? Why am I giving you this information? I'm not supposed to give you this information. You have information, you have information. But that's the peddler. I buy it here and now I make sure to go to your house. You don't want it, I go to the next house. The point is, I'm intentionally bringing words from this person to this person. That's the idea. If we're just communicating in shul and I say something and I didn't realize that it can have negative effects, I don't think it's rechilus, at least not the regular sin of rechilus. It was a mistake. It was a shogeg. Maybe I have to do tshuva on that, because I led to something negative by mistake. But it seems like the act of rechilus b'mezid is that I come and I intentionally deliver words in the midst of a conversation. How does a yeshiva bacher refrain from hearing Loshon Hara in his dormitory room? Somebody asked Rabbi YY Miller. Rabbi YY Miller said he should walk out of the room until the people go to sleep. He could sit in the Beis Medrash until they go to sleep. In case they don't go to sleep until late, he should say, people, excuse me, I have to go to sleep. When you talk, I can't sleep. Do me a favor, let me go to sleep. And then he says, generally, you could always interrupt conversations in a way that doesn't insult people. You could do it with wisdom and with sensitivity, and you can get out of every situation of Loshon Hara. You're never a victim. You don't have to become part of people's Loshon Hara conversations. Have a beautiful day.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.